Welcome back to Rumi Gold, where quiet mastery begins. What if the reason your life feels stuck isn't about your work ethic, but your frequency? What if the richest man in the room is always the one who leaks the least energy? What if money is just the receipt and energy is the purchase? What if the game isn't earning, but keeping your center? What if you could stop chasing outcomes and instead become the unmovable source you've always searched for? Today, we explore why energy will always be worth more than money, not as a tactic, but as a truth. So, let's sit in it for a moment. Where in your life have you poured your attention into things that never paid you back? Where have you hustled, bargained, and strategized, only to find that no stack of money could change how tired you feel when you wake up? And if you kept score honestly, how many times has your greatest breakthrough come when you finally stopped negotiating with life and just let your frequency lead? The old game is to believe you need more deals, more wins, more proof. But every time you make energy a slave to money, you spend your core for the sake of keeping busy. You measure life by trophies, not by the weight of your own presence, and that cost, it adds up. Here's the piece people miss. Money can only multiply what you already are. If you're chaotic, money will bring more noise. If you're anchored, money will become quiet power in your hands. But if you trade your energy for every little thing, soon you feel stretched to the edge. Even if you look successful on paper, that's not fulfillment, that's erosion. Let that breathe. I'll tell you a quick story, because this isn't theory. Years ago, I was closing a deal that made all the sense in the world. The partners were credible. On paper, perfect. But every time I stepped toward it, something in my body tensed. It wasn't nervousness, it was a lack of alignment. The deeper I tried to push through with logic, the more resistance I felt. Finally, with not a single external reason to say no, I pulled the plug. No drama, just clarity and discipline. A few weeks later, I found out that deal unraveled for everyone who stayed in. It cost them more than money. It cost them health, reputation, peace. All because the calculations were sound, but the energy was wrong. My life changed more from that letting go than from any deal I ever closed. That's the thing about energy. It tells the truth before the dust settles. If you listen, it'll steer you better than any spreadsheet ever will. This isn't about motivation. It's about the silent currency that backs every choice you make. Have you protected your energy, or have you bartered it away for social approval, false urgency, validation, noise? Because the quietest truth is, wherever your energy leaks, your life leaks. The world will tell you that hustling for more is the game. But what if the real game is to guard your state like a vault? What if everything you want comes not from chasing, but from holding? It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. You already know this. You felt it in rooms where the richest person spoke the least and walked away light. You've noticed how ease can't be faked. It comes from living unentangled. The cost of scattered energy is always higher than the cost of missed opportunity. The man who disciplines his field, who pulls his attention back from every distraction, becomes impossible to move. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. That's why some succeed with less. Their field is clean. They know the value of withdrawal, of rest as strategy, of stillness as leverage. Let that land. Pause here and look at your own day, your schedule, your bank account. Where do you spend energy to fill time, not to build presence? Where are you noisy, hoping it'll turn to gold. Strip it all back. What's left is the part of you that can walk away, that can pause without fear, that can say no without story. That's wealth. That's what money tries and fails to mimic. The more you honor your field, conserve your focus, and say yes only where there's a reason so many people wake up every morning with a fist in their chest, a pressure that never quite leaves from breakfast to nightfall, the voice that says move faster, do more, chase harder, or you'll fall behind. Most of us have been taught the same formula. Somewhere along the line, we started to believe that effort guarantees reward, that money will answer to those who grind, sweat, and bite down hardest. We traded trust for tension. We measured worth in hours and output. We ran after productivity like it was sacred. But is it? Let that echo. If you sit with a Trioli situ, start to notice what that hustle feels like deep in your bones. Not strength, just strain. Not clarity, only noise. That's the truth most Dante want to say out loud. Fear disguised as ambition, scarcity dressed up as drive, survival hidden under a pile of to-do lists. We were programmed by parents, teachers, a culture obsessed with getting ahead to mistake movement for progress and busyness for importance. They told us, the more you do, the more you'll have. The more you'll have, the more you'll be. But if that was true, why is everyone so tired? Why is so much effort met with so little ease? This isn't about being right. Imagine a flower. You could stand over it each morning and try to pull the petals open. Try to rush nature with your hands. The result? Torn edges, bruised stem, a bloom that never quite finds its shape. Or you trust the process. Sunlight, silence, patience. The blossom opens in its own time. You don't control, you allow. That's the energy most men have forgotten. Trust, alignment, a kind of slow magnetism. You attract what belongs without wrestling for it. In craft, a master carpenter does not force wood against its grain. In martial arts, power comes from direction, not from mindless force. The greatest architects build on bedrock because they understand what supports and what crumbles under pressure. Let that land. What have we been doing wrong? We've let fear run the boardroom, drive the family car, shape every conversation about money. Decisions made with a shaking hand, an anxious breath, a mind split by scarcity. Most men are not lazy. They are exhausted by trying to outrun a feeling. If I can just do more, I'll finally be safe. But safety bought through overwork is not safety, is a moving finish line. The world says, more hustle, more proof, more grind. But a man who is rooted doesn't need to be convinced. He doesn't panic when others sprint. He knows where his true authority lives, not in the amount he produces, but in the clarity he moves from. You already know this. Day after day, you can punish yourself at the gym or the office. You can turn each hour into a transaction, more effort, more input. But what if the entire system was rigged? What if your greatest wealth arrives when you stop trying to wrestle it to the ground? Think about breath. Force it, and you gas out. Relax, and it deepens. In a quiet room, wealth comes like a slow inhale. You make space, and it finds you. Most want to believe this until they sit in their own silence long enough to feel the difference. This isn't about motivation. There have always been two ways to meet the world. You can tighten your jaw, clench your hands, and try to force money, opportunities, or peace into your life. Or you can become unshakable, the architecture of trust, into your mornings. Let each action be shaped by alignment, not adrenaline. Let desire be like sunlight to a flower, not a grabbing hand, but a steady presence. Each time you catch yourself chasing what does not belong, pause. Let the inner noise settle. You don't need to prove your worth by staying busy. Let productivity serve your purpose, not replace it. That's the discipline. Hear it again quietly and without pressure. You do not need to force the world to give you what you already are. Wealth, like quiet power, is drawn to those who remember who they are under all the noise. This isn't about never working. It's about working from a foundation that doesn't crack every time your results aren't immediate. That's how real alignment feels: steady, unhurried, unwilling to chase at all costs. Let that echo. Nothing to prove, nothing to chase. Just clarity, discipline, and the willingness to move at the pace of what is true. The rest will come, one breath at a time. Most people start the day checking the numbers, the bank balance, the notifications, the inbox count. They think that the numbers on the screen say something about their wealth, about what's possible, about what they're entitled to feel today. But numbers are always a second language, the first currency. That's something you don't see, yet you spend it before the coffee even brews. What if you could see the balance of your own energy as clearly as you see the money in your account? How would you act if every hour, every word, every shift in your posture was a literal transaction? Most people walk around spending energy, leaking attention, investing in worry or urgency or proving. That's withdrawal after withdrawal. Most people never check the balance. Let that land. Look at the way you grip your phone in line, or how many windows you keep open on your laptop. The nervous scroll, the half-distracted yes, the rushing from task to task. That's money being lit on fire, but it's invisible. The currency is energetic. Every reaction you have is already spending something you'll never get back. The world trains you for this. The system profits from it. There's a reason screens don't ask for your permission, they just take. That's not on accident. That's the discipline. Noticing what costs you, even when no receipt is handed over. Think of 3 moments from an ordinary day. First, your morning routine. Maybe you get up, reach for the phone, and scroll the news. What's actually happening? You're spending awareness before the sun. Now you're part of a narrative you didn't choose, responding to the mood of strangers, bending your field to the headlines, not a dollar spent. But you feel poorer. You already know this. Second, when you walk into work or wherever you produce, see yourself entering that building or that room. Pause just before the door opens. Most walk in carrying the leftover stress from home, body tension, doubts. Imagine if that weight showed up as a debt on your spreadsheet. What if showing up clear meant you had more to give? So choosing to enter without the residue was a form of real wealth. This, right here, is where the inner field sets the outer currency. Quiet power starts to build. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. Third, consider what happens at the end of the day when you sit down at the table or unwind alone. Notice if you're present or if you're flickering phone on the side, mind on tomorrow, attention split into fragments. Presence is the highest currency. If you are not present, the moment is already spent. And if it happens every night, it's no different than emptying your pockets as soon as you come home. There's nothing to prove, so how do you shift it? The answer isn't complicated. It's a discipline of noticing, not fixing. Try this every morning. Before you look at your phone, before you pour the coffee, sit with your breath for 3 minutes. Start by asking, what am I carrying? Whose energy is this? What do I already feel behind my eyes? Not what I should do, but what's really there. Let the answers come up without judgment. Just notice the cost. Feel if you have holes in your bucket leaks from yesterday, irritation from a message, heaviness. Whatever you find, just name it quietly. That's a balance check. That is how you measure real wealth before the world can take its cut. That little ritual 3 minutes, not more, will show you where the leaks are. It will feel boring sometimes. Sometimes you'll want to fix, but the real practice is in presence. Can you sit with the truth of your own field without rushing to patch it? That's energy hygiene. That's the difference between abundance and survival. Even if the numbers outside haven't changed yet, let that echo. Most people say they want prosperity, but they spend their very first currency on things that drain them, on dramas that aren't theirs, on noise disguised as importance. Checking your balance every morning is not about motivation, it's about sovereignty. It's about not letting the outside world reach in and rearrange your field before UVA had a say. You already know what it feels like to spend the day from empty. Now learn what it feels like to spend only what you mean to. The real balance sheet isn't in dollars. It's in the clarity you bring to each breath, each handshake, each decision to hold or release. There's no secret here, just a new kind of noticing. Let's sit with that. What if reality wasn't waiting to hear what you want? What if the life you're living right now is just your own frequency reflected back? What if the world responds, not to your words, but to your willingness to become the signal? And what if you never had to convince, only to cohere? Let that settle for a second. People spend years polishing the language of their desires, crafting vision boards, practicing perfect affirmations, like the world is a courtroom waiting to be persuaded. But the room doesn't move for the loudest voice. It shifts for the one who owns his inner access. That's resonance. You already know this. When a tuning fork vibrates, another, untouched, starts to sing at the same note. You can't fake it. You can't want your way into it. The room will not answer what you say, but it cannot ignore what you are. That's the difference between performing confidence and being calm in your bones. The man whose presence is felt without a word. The friend you sit with on a silent morning, and suddenly you both breathe easier for no reason. This isn't about motivation. There's a gravity to real coherence. The way steel filings line up when a magnetic field is present. Not a single one hesitating. No confusion, no anxiety, just the silent discipline of alignment. Life notices you when you're not looking at life. Opportunity walks toward you when you stop chasing the next thing. Think about walking into a room filled with hurried energy, nerves, wanting, comparison, hunger. You can feel it before a single word is spoken. And then, once in a while, you meet someone who is all here present, undivided, at peace with his enoughness. Suddenly, the room's current shifts. Something gets easier, even if nothing outside changes. That's resonance at work. You attract what you are. The world doesn't answer requests. It answers reality. We don't manifest what we want. We manifest what we're holding now, underneath all the wanting. Trying to chant abundance from a place of quiet panic never fools life. Money feels your hands tremble, Love tastes your old fear. Freedom knocks on the door of your body, not your to-do list. Let that echo. And if you feel resistance rising, that's just your old tuning fork trying to play a note that never belonged to you. This is not a cause for judgment. Alignment isn't another task. It's a returning, a getting still enough to hear the music that won't settle for your old disguises. Maybe you've tried to fit. Maybe you've hustled yourself into rooms that dampened your frequency and called it progress. But your true resonance never leaves. It just waits, like a compass needle, for your hands to let go of all the effort. So, how do you shift your signal for real? Not with willpower, not by reciting mantras your chest doesn't believe, but by entering the body right where it's tight, right where you feel disconnected. Here's something concrete. When you want to change your resonance in the moment, pause, put your hand on your chest, breathe slow and low. Inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. Let the breath drop what the mind cannot solve. Feel where your frequency is jagged, and just for a minute, don't try to fix it. Let the sensation exist. Let yourself be with it, not against it, like watching a river, not damming it up. Then notice if you can trust the breath to give what thinking can't. If you can, you're not chasing a higher frequency. You're allowing your real one to surface. You become the tuning fork that sounds a single, honest note. That's coherence. That's access. Opportunities, ideas, even money, they drift toward the man who sits quietly at the center of himself. Not because he needs them, but because he remembers who he is without any of it. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. Maybe this is the quietest revolution. Inner coherence, not outer effort, shapes your world. Stand in your own magnetic field and let the filings come. You don't have to gather. You don't have to force life to notice. Your only task is to clear the static. Return to the note that is unmoved by the world's noise. That's the discipline. And if the mind wants more steps, more proof, more evidence, it's because culture taught you that becoming is a chase. But truth is, coherence is the absence of all chasing. It's the moment you let the noise settle and realize nothing real in you could ever be missed. Not by love, not by money, not by reality itself. Let's sit with that. When you find yourself slipping into old habits, grasping, explaining, overthinking, come back to the body. Put both feet on the floor. Breathe. Listen. Feel what's actually happening in your chest, your belly, your jaw. Don't run from it. Bring attention there, like you'd steady a plank of wood before you build. From here, you don't need to manifest. You need to return. What if true wealth never had to be earned, just revealed? What if your calendar could tell you more about your soul than your bank account ever would? What if harmony inside quietly determined the kind of prosperity outside? What if inner overflow, not striving, was the foundation? Let's sit with that. There was a time I thought wealth looked like a scoreboard, ticking up, never stopping. More meetings, more growth. But the more I stacked, the more pulled apart I felt. My mind full days, scattered, focused on acquisition. But no matter how many deals, something quietly leaked out, a sense of peace. A kind of quiet confidence, the gentle, settled clarity that no spreadsheet could touch. Then I noticed something. The men who seemed truly whole, not rushed, not proving anything. They lived different. Their days didn't look like a frantic chase, but an unfolding. Their calendar had space, white space, margins. Not every slot crammed with doing, but room for the things that didn't show up on anyone's ledger. A walk with a friend, an unhurried meal, just breathing in a quiet room. They moved more like nature than like machines. There's a reason a tree doesn't force its fruit. There's a reason rivers don't race, but carve valleys through patience. These men held their time gently, but with backbone. They let inner harmony set the rhythm. It changed how they spent their mornings, their evenings, even how they answered the phone. Wealth, for them, wasn't produced. It was extended, like a branch growing from good roots. Maybe you feel that difference in your own routine. An overfull calendar isn't a sign of value, but maybe a symptom of what? Scarcity, or the fear of missing out. What might it mean to let some hours remain unscheduled, to trust that empty space makes richer music than non-stop noise? There is a discipline that goes deeper than hustle. It's the discipline of not rushing yourself beyond your own natural tempo. This isn't about motivation. Look closely at the architecture of a wealthy person's week. There is symmetry. Days are balanced. There is time for actual work and also for care. Sleep, meals prepared with attention, movement that feels nourishing, not punishing. When you see them with people they love, their presence is undivided. There's a gentleness to how they listen, a true quality of attention, as if each conversation matters, because it does. Even their solitude feels like a room with windows open, air moving freely, nothing stagnant. Let that land. How you spend your hours tells the story of your values. If your interior is chaos, your calendar will mirror that. If your relationships are shallow, every meeting will feel transactional. But when your inner ecology is harmonized, even the smallest act reflects dignity. Paying for coffee in silence, answering an email slowly, looking someone in the eye and simply breathing before you speak. Wealth starts to feel less like clinging, more like extension. You're no longer hoarding time, hoarding money, hoarding energy. You're letting what's naturally whole move outward. In relationships, this shows up as elegant generosity, not performative, just simple, quiet giving. You're not drained by giving because you're not fighting yourself to look prosperous. The harmony inside protects you from overgiving. You're generous, but intact. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. Imagine mapping out a month where priorities flow from deepest order. Morning breath before meetings. Meals shared with no phones, just hands, laughter, eye contact. Evenings ending with gratitude, reviewing not what you did, but how you moved through your day. Every yes and no arising from alignment, not from pressure or the need to prove your worth to anyone. The meetings matter, but so do the spaces in between them. Sometimes, those are the only places real clarity can breathe. Picture your living room, uncluttered. Your phone, not always in your hand. A home where you can hear yourself think. You know what you value, so it's easy to let other people's urgency pass through you. Like weather, the world can pull and push, but your inner architecture means you bend instead of break. That's the discipline. Wealth, in this sense, is never just accumulation. It is the natural excess of a system that is running clean. When your interior ecology is well ordered, your financial life, your relationships, your hours, all begin to grow out of that soil, without force, without pretending. You're not following a productivity hack. You're letting harmony do the heavy lifting. This is what it means to let wealth arise, not be produced. To trust that nothing needs to be rushed to be real. Sometimes the best sign of true prosperity is how quietly you can sit with the day you built and feel nothing is missing. Let that echo for a moment. When you strip it all back, this is what remains. No more tricks, no more reaching, just a man and his energy, sitting in the room together, silent. The rest of the world is moving in circles. You let yourself listen for the difference. That's already the start. Energy is the only currency here, not the dollar in your pocket, not the approval waiting in someone else's eyes, just what rises in you when nothing and no one demands a performance. Some people spend all their life paying for a sense of belonging they never buy. It's strange, but true. Every breath, every day, an invisible transaction, chasing strategies. But energy is the one thing you can't fake. You can't hustle your way into calm, or talk your way into groundedness. Either you hold it, or you don't. Let that land. Most rooms you walk into, you'll feel it before you know it. Resonance or resistance. Some call it a vibe. I call it gravity. Two people can say the same words, but only the one anchored in self-trust draws the world closer. Resonance isn't loud. It just doesn't waver. That's why a fire in one corner can warm the whole house. That's why a stone in a stream holds steady while the water rushes on. You can feel it in your own chest. When you stop resisting who you already are, what flows is never a struggle. This isn't about effort. This is what happens when you're finished pretending. The world is built to reflect your inner state, no more, no less. If you build from deficiency, that's exactly what multiplies. If you rest in plenty, plenty starts to echo back. That's not theory. It's just how fields work. There's nothing to prove. Each moment you have a choice to invest your energy in an illusion of lack or to co-create something real. If you catch yourself doubting, breathe. If you notice yourself contracting, let your body soften. This is the only discipline. Allow what is abundant to remain free. Let old rooms close. Think about the men who move with quiet power, not because they're immune to fear, but because they don't argue with reality. Their wealth isn't in what they show. It's in what they won't trade for approval. A man like that is expensive energetically. He's not afraid to walk away. He doesn't exhaust himself trying to fit. You feel his worth before he says a word. That's the discipline. Don't worry about becoming him. Just return to yourself. Practice holding your value like breath, not braced, not forced, just unbroken. It may take a lifetime to understand how simple this actually is. The whole world will pull you in 1,000 directions, but the only way home is through the noise, the hunger, the need to be seen. On the other side is stillness. That's where prosperity takes root. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. If you do one thing today, let it be this. Notice where your energy leaks. Not as a fix, just as an inventory. Name one place where you could reclaim yourself. Maybe it's 5 minutes of quiet. Maybe it's one honest boundary. The world won't reward you for it, but your own life will get deeper. That's a different kind of wealth. Anchor here. Masculine stillness, the shape of a stone in an empty field. The sound you only hear at dawn. Not trying harder, not chasing more, just moving with your own gravity, day by day. Now, I trust what grounds me. I trust what grounds me. Silence holds my value. Silence holds my value. Every boundary builds my wealth. Every boundary builds my wealth. I walk away from what drains me. I walk away from what